Welcome to Loremen, a podcast about local legends and obscure curiosities from days of yore. I'm Alistair Beckett-King.
And I'm James Shakeshaft.
And in this episode, we are joined, James, by the comedian and real-life Edinburgher, Eleanor Morton.
Ich bin ein Edinburgher.
Oui.
Den Adder.
Get ready for another haunting tale from Old Reekie, which is a name for Edinburgh, not Eleanor, just to be clear.
Yes.
Are you ready? Follow me now to a sort of subterranean street, a thoroughly spooky thoroughfare. This, James, is the haunting of Mary King's Close.
Ooh.
Mind your head, because it's not built for your sort.
No, most things aren't.
The tall English. Hello there, James.
Oh, hello, Alistair.
Yeah, I'm doing my dramatic voice. How do you like it?
You are. You sound husky.
Hello there, James. Hello there, James. I told you never to come back here.
Welcome, traveller.
Oh, I'm so excited by the words welcome, traveller. I feel sad that I have to cut off that little bit of improvisation because we are wasting the time of not just the listener, but of a deputy guest law person, Eleanor Morton. Hello, Eleanor.
Hello, Eleanor, Alistair, and James. Hello, hi.
Welcome, traveller. Can you also do the adventurer voice?
I can do. It's American now. I can do an American one like that.
Oh, that's like a cowboy.
Ooh, cowboy.
Well, you're Loremen, right? So.
Thanks, finally.
Thank you for just understanding the pun without it being explained. Thank you.
Naturally.
Finally, we found the person whose accent our title works in.
Loremen.
The person with an accent nobody else has.
It's a special accent for me. My sister does, but nobody else knows who that is, so.
Well, Eleanor, welcome back to the podcast. We had you on ages and ages ago talking about Major Weir.
Major Weir, yes.
They were revolting Scottish man.
He was gross, not just because he was Scottish, but he was also Scottish.
Although it is an indicator, it can be an indicator of grossness.
Yeah, I'm just going to say yes.
Did he have a dancing stick?
He did, yes.
Have I conflated him with someone else? Yeah.
A magician's enchanted staff, and when they burned him at the stake, it leapt out of the flames and did a little jig and was like, this is...
I'm free.
Yeah.
Freed at last.
Standard.
Standard Scottish man behaviour there.
I think it's very feminist of him to get burnt at the stake, because that is often reserved for women in fairy tales.
Great to see him breaking down boundaries and expectations.
A fire for her.
Well, funny that you should mention the old feminism there, because you are writing one of those books about women.
Bloody women books.
Oh, you've written it already. It's already a book. You've
got
written
a copy here. Hang on.
Oh, let's have a look.
No way.
Here.
An actual paper
this
copy made of
the paperback.
thin wood.
That's me.
Oh, nice.
And I got to dress up.
Life lessons from historical women.
Which doesn't...
And it's got a picture of you on the front holding a mobile phone, but in historical dress.
You see, it's like, whoa, anachronistic. And then there's some more of that on the back because we didn't want to waste the photo shoot.
Very good.
It was a lot of fun.
And if you Google the title of it, it comes up as listed as an autobiography, which suggests that you are a time traveller. So there may be some kind of metadata issue
Everything
there.
is history.
Are you every woman?
It's all in me. Is that the lyric?
I think so. I genuinely don't know what song that is.
It's Lisa Stansfield's.
Is it? Lisa Stansted.
I'm every woman. Is it Stansfield?
That one.
I said Stansted, but that's an airport. So
Lisa Stansted.
The most feminist airport in Britain. No, it is not. I have my own anecdotal stuff in it, if that counts as autobiography.
So it is semi-autobiographical, except for the bits that happened before you were born.
There are 2 women in that who are still alive, and technically,
Wow.
So I hope they won't.
That's kind of almost quite
It is a bit.
rude
I'm a bit worried
to
that...
describe them as historical while they're
But
alive.
they're super old. They're super, super old.
They're so old, they might as well be dead.
None of the women are from Luton, but it is a...
Are any of them from Scotland?
2 of them are from Scotland. Now, I sort of complain in the book that Scottish women are not very... throughout history have not really been amplified very much. And then I go on to make one of the women I talk about one of the only famous women. So I have done... There is a chapter on Mary Queen of Scots, but I think that's important because she's quite overlooked in terms of everyone knows she got her head cut off by Elizabeth, but a lot of people aren't that familiar with like some other more of the other things she did, and she did some useful stuff before it all went tit over us. And then the other woman is Williamina Fleming, who was
I just need to warn you, we're going to bleep that, and it's going to sound really rude. Please continue.
That's okay.
Because it's going to be the same thing over the same thing.
Yeah, so people are going to be like, we don't even know which way up she is by the end of it. Which way round was she at the start?
Can make it sound ruder to bleep it out almost. It's funny.
Sorry, Williamina
Fleming, who was a Dundonian astronomer. She was one of the... she discovered a load of stars, and she coined the term... I don't know if she coined the term, but she sort of discovered what essentially are red dwarfs. Or maybe white dwarfs. I was very bad at that chapter because I'm not good at astronomy. She discovered the Horsehead Nebula.
Wow, with Dundee's weather, she discovered all these stars. That's so
She had
impressive.
to go to America. She had to go to Harvard. She was a single mother. She got to America in the sort of the 1870s, I think, and her husband abandoned her. And she got a job as a maid in this guy's house, and then he was like, I need some people just to do some calculations for me. You'll do. And so he hired his maid to do these calculations, and she has become one of the most important people in that stage of astronomy. So, well,
I hate to contradict you, but before you came on, I did a bit of research into whether there were any good I'm afraid my results were quite different to yours. I went straight to the book Scottish Eccentrics by the famous Scottish poet Hugh MacDiarmid, which he published in 1936.
Not his real name.
No, not his real name. Well, I didn't know anything about this guy, but he was a Scottish nationalist, Stalinist, and occasional fascist sympathiser. So
he was of his time.
Odd guy. And in Scottish Eccentrics, he has one woman. So you're twice as feminist as
Hugh
this guy.
Twice as Scottish feminist.
The guy who liked Mussolini. You're twice as feminist as him. And this is a slightly abridged version of what he has to say about Scottish women. I'll read it to you now in presumably a completely correct accent.
I'm not one to judge.
The one Scottish woman, note one. He says that in brackets. He's really underlining it. The one Scottish woman, note one, with whom I propose to deal in this volume may well be given pride of place, for Scottish women who can be classed as eccentrics are very few and far between, and in most of these the eccentricities displayed are of a very minor and moderate character, scarcely entitling them to more than a little local reputation as queer customers. A long list of famous English women is easy to compile. It is impossible to draw up any corresponding list of Scotswomen. Only half a dozen or so of names come readily to mind, but even these compare poorly with the English opposite numbers, whether in beauty, in social sway, or in mental or spiritual interest.
So is he saying we're a load of stupid uggos?
Ugly, boring failures. Would you say that's fair?
I mean, I am.
To put that in context, this guy openly preferred the Nazis to the English. So the fact that he thinks Scottish women are worse than English women that's quite damning.
This doesn't surprise me as an opinion of this guy who has famously a weird head. There, I said it. But I think that's not an uncommon view. I think a lot of so obviously, as a Scottish person, I like to say we're the best at everything, but we're not actually the best at everything. I think there is quite a big vein of misogyny throughout Scottish cultural history, and the fact that he couldn't even be bothered. He's like, I'm too tired to look for it. I'm too tired to look for any more women. There wasn't any other women. I'm too tired. Yes, there was. Yes, there was, Christopher. Come on.
Christopher? Wait.
This is his real name.
Christopher Murray Grieve.
Ooh.
He was sort of one of the kind of modernist age, which is why he's a fascist, because all modernists are a bit fascisty, it turns out. But yes, that doesn't surprise me. He was the first line on the Wikipedia portion of the Google is at different times throughout his life, MacDiarmid was a supporter of fascism, Stalinism, and Scottish nationalism. So I guess those were very important to him. But what do you think? Alistair, you're related to Scottish women. Do you think we're all ugly idiots?
I don't think so. Lots of my family are Scottish women. Some of my closest family are Scottish women.
Who is the woman I have to know who's the woman he mentions then.
Oh, I forgot to type her name. So who is the real sexist?
Feminist
Didn't
award
bother screenshotting
revoked for ABK there. Taking it back.
It was. I'll just make up a Scottish sounding.
Was it
woman's
Lulu?
name. It was. It was Mary McLulu.
Mary McLulu.
Mary McLu. Mary McLu.
Mary McLeod, there you go.
Mary
Got there
McLuhan.
in the end.
I believe it was a woman who set up a cult of sorts, a sect, a Scottish sect.
I mean, I'm sure he didn't have much to say
But
about
his
it.
description of it is so boring. That's why I didn't. I was like, she sounds terrible.
She probably was.
Really, really terrible and unattractive. Not interested at all, based on your description.
That is what the book is. It's just wall to wall weird Scottish women. It's not. Josephine Baker's in it. She's quite weird.
What's she do?
Well, she was a spy. I mean, I'm just going off tangent. Sorry, but she was a spy in World War II. She flew planes. She had a pet cheetah.
Did she dance in dance halls?
She did. That was what she was really famous for. The Diamante banana skirt dancing in the Parisian dance halls. James is like,
yes.
What?
A whole skirt that's like a
Diamante banana skirt and basically nothing else. It's very erotic.
What's a banana skirt? Because at the moment I'm imagining a sort of a costume where just your face is sticking out and
It's slightly sexier than that, actually.
Yeah, and she's...
Well, this is Diamante.
She's not wearing Billy Connolly's banana boots either.
If you can imagine a tutu, the other way a tutu sort of maybe might curl up slightly.
Yeah.
But those are like a series of bananas. So, Eleanor, we've established that Scotland has loads of brilliant women, but also it has a lot of ghosts. And in fact, as well as publishing a book, like a clever bean, you are also doing an Edinburgh Fringe. This came out way more passionate than I meant to do. Good for you, Eleanor. You're also doing an Edinburgh Fringe show.
Yes, I am. And it is called Haunted House. And it is all about ghosts, specifically Edinburgh ghosts.
Hugh McDermott, as far as I know, didn't have anything to say about the quality of Scottish ghosts.
Oh, he probably thought they were rubbish.
They are not as good as English ghosts.
We'll see. We'll have to do some kind of competition, some kind of Six Nations for Ghosts, where they all compete to be the spookiest. But the show is about the fact that I am from Edinburgh, which is always touted as like, and maybe this is, maybe if you come from somewhere else, also a bit old and historic, you think this about your town, but I feel like it's always touted as like the most haunted city in the world. Like it's always in those listicles and things. And it's got this very gruesome, spooky history, as we talked about last time. And I love ghosts, and I've never seen one. So I feel a bit cheated, really. That's kind of what the show's about.
Are you hoping a ghost will come to the show?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, what if the whole audience
idea?
is ghosts? Yeah. Except, I guess, would they pay? Okay, forget that. I'm not interested.
They pay online.
The money is the most important thing, guys. Okay. It's on a monkey barrel, which is, appropriately enough, in the Edinburgh vaults, within the vaults of the old town. So it is the spookiest venue I could get.
That's one of the ones people say is haunted that they see ghosts at, isn't it?
The vaults are, if you don't know anything about the vaults, what they are basically is a series of storage rooms. It's not that exciting. Lots and lots of, yeah.
Don't they store damp and moisture?
They store a lot of damp and moisture.
they store ghosts, James. They're just chock-a-block with ghosts.
That's where the ghosts are, in the damp.
Oh, that's ectoplasm.
That's it. That's how it works, yeah. When they built the South Bridge in the end of the 18th century, I think, they basically built a load of vaults into it. So if you know Edinburgh, the bridge goes across one street and then there's another street below it because Edinburgh's on hills. And so these vaults are kind of at different levels. You can go into them from one street level or from another. And over the years, a lot of people ended up living in them, like very poor people who, immigrants from Ireland and the Highlands. So they became overcrowded and people would set up shop in them. And it was also kind of like known as sort of underground city almost. And from that now, basically the council rediscovered them, I think in the 80s. And now everyone says they're full of ghosts and you can go on a tour there.
That's right.
For 20 quid, or you can just come and hang out in Monkey Barrel and have the same experience.
Yeah, half of them have been turned into fringe venues and the other half are full of ghosts.
I think before the ghost tours, a lot of them were like either storage or I think they would let bands practice in them because they were like insulated from noise. So also there's a notorious Edinburgh nightclub, The Hive, which is in one of them because we did a little ghost experiment last week in Monkey Barrel, and the ambience was somewhat ruined by the sound of cascadas every time we touch thumping through the opposite wall.
But I think you can often smell ghosts in the hive, presuming that ghosts smell like a sort of weird mixture of vomit, cleaning chemicals, and for some reason, like orange squash, like really notes of orange squash.
Yeah, scientists have said that is the ghost smell. So
that's the smell of ghosts.
That's what they smell like. We don't know why.
It's funny you should mention the buried city of Edinburgh. I think maybe we've probably mentioned it on previous episodes, but we probably need to describe a bit of how Edinburgh works for context, because it is a bit like an MC Escher
it is, yes,
lithograph or a level in like Portal, where it's different things moving at different levels. You can see a place, but you can't necessarily reach it without taking a very circuitous route around. There used to be a loch, and now there's a train station instead of a loch, and there's these two massive bridges with sort of, as you say, sort of a warren of storage rooms / ghost spots.
Yes. So the reason it is all higgledy-piggledy, it's also very hard to give directions, and you want to show that you know where stuff is so badly, but it's so hard to explain to someone like a Japanese tourist how to get from one level to another. It's impossible.
This is the curse of the redhead in Edinburgh, that you will be asked directions
frequently, and
because whether you're a local or not, people will make assumptions.
And I never know where to go anyway, so I disappoint people. But the reason Edinburgh's sort of built in this weird way is, first of all, it's built on 7 hills, so it's on different levels. But secondly,
that's a very folkloric number.
It is, isn't it? Isn't it nice?
Built on 7 hills. Sounds very hell-mouthy.
Yeah, I was going to say nothing good can come of it,
and nothing good has.
Apart from Alistair Beckett King's Fringe show last year, 2 years ago, whatever.
2 years.
Selling
2 years ago.
it.
I haven't really done anything good since then.
So in the medieval-ish times, what is in the past, the English, boo hiss, kept invading. I know, sorry guys.
I had a feeling these guys were going to come into the story.
But they kept invading, which is really rude.
At least they're not Nazis.
That's true.
You know. Oh, no, wait. No, I meant to be satirising Hugh McDermott by accidentally saying my opinion, which is that the English slightly preferable to Nazis.
But English kept attacking, which was rude. So Edinburgh basically, it had city walls like most cities, but the walls were only around the castle and then the mile, the high street, which is this sort of long, sort of like a spine, I guess, a long path down from the castle to Holyrood. So you didn't want to build out with the walls because you would get attacked. So everyone built in the walls. But the problem with that is there's not a lot of space. And so Edinburgh is just like, what's that phone game? Tetris. It's like Tetris. But in between each...
Like the opposite of Jenga.
And then
Jenga, but you're putting them in.
Yeah, and in between each layer, there is a bunch of bodies because we also had to bury people. And then, yes, we had the Norloch, which is the North Lake.
Thank you for translating that.
I actually do know Scots. And that was where Princess Street Gardens is now. And it was our water supply and sewage dump and general dump and where we would, duck witches, whatever else. Dump bodies, whatever, So it was not a hygienic place. So it was a crowded, horrible, smelly, gross place. And luckily for us, that ends up giving you loads of weird myths and creepy stories.
Would I be right in saying that a place called Mary King's Close led down or up to the Norloch?
Mary King's Close was it still is just above the loch. So you could go down to it's the exit that I don't think you can use anymore, but it comes out on Coburn Street. Now,
I should say this has come up previously. A lot of the texts I look things up in have been read by computers using OCR.
Oh boy.
And so in a previous episode, we discovered that it thought the name of the poet Rabbie Burns was Rabbie Bum. And Coburn Street is spelled Cockburn.
It is. Oh. It is, yes, pretty rude.
Which OCRs incredibly badly. There's a Lord and Lady Coburn, and they OCR very badly. The computer has absolutely no idea what their name really is. Were you talking about
Robert Burns at the same time? Because that's quite a visual combination. I mean, he was quite a bit of a slut, so I think that's quite an appropriate name for him. I'm shaming him now.
That's outrageous.
If we beep slut, that's going to sound really bad.
I'm so sorry, guys. It's disgusting.
So, James, we would like to share with you some of the legends and myths connected to a place called Mary King's Close.
Mary King's Close?
Yeah, exactly. Even the name is worrying. Now, there is in modern-day Edinburgh a Mary King's Close.
Yes.
But that's on ground level, right? That's a normal on-the-ground level place. But beneath it, there is the historic Mary King's Close, I believe.
So the Mary King's Close that is there now is the Mary King's Close that was there then. Nothing has changed except that Mary King's Close, which was a street. It was a street with houses off it, and people lived there, and it was sort of a normal, sort of narrow street that came off the Royal Mile. And then the thing that's changed is that in the 1760s, when they were building the city chambers, which is the big fancy building that the council use now on top of it, instead of demolishing the close, they just built right on top of it because they don't have the time or the money to do that. So now there's still a street between the Mile and Coburn Street, sort of linking them, but it's completely buried underground. And
What?
yes, and it has doors either side. You can't go into it without permission, or it's a tourist attraction now, so you can.
It sounds like what you've described is a tunnel.
Yes,
I guess it's a slopey
it's a
tunnel.
slopey tunnel,
but it looks like a
which
street.
was a street. They put a roof on a street.
But the sky is the underneath of another
Yes.
street, basically.
Yes.
You know when you're watching a low-budget 80s period drama and it's meant to be an exterior, but clearly they filmed it in like the York Museum or something like that, and it's a small bit of a shop, and clearly there's no sky there. It kind of looks like that.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
'Cause it looks like a realistic street, but why is it dark?
I don't want to spoil anything because this might be some sort of supernatural magical thing. How did they manage to make the street stay in the air? The new street. How come it did? How come? Because I would think if you built a street on top of another street, it would be like a lasagna. But what you're describing is, I don't know, sort of hula hoop.
It sort of is. I mean, that's a good question. But there is a roof to it now, So a close is like a name for a street in Scots, but it's like a very narrow street. So it's basically an alleyway. So there's not actually that much.
Describing the sides of the street, I suppose.
I think it's closed because it would be a gated street, so it's like a private street. Which I think close in England, I think of it as being like a dead end.
Yes, like a
I think
cul-de-sac.
cul-de-sac.
Historically, it also meant a private street that was a dead
It
end.
means, it's like either it leads to a private thing, or but it's characteristically very narrow. So it's not like you're building on Oxford Circus or anything. You're not having to bridge a huge gap. It's pretty narrow.
Thank you for putting that in terms of civic.
London? It's like London.
A wide London roundabout.
Imagine it's like one of the wide streets in London. It's not
It's
like one of the wide
nothing
streets in London. It's like one of the thin
It's the
streets
opposite.
in London. I'm with you. Suddenly I'm on board.
And you know what? If J.K. Rowling had seen it or been aware of it, she would have been right in there pretending she'd based Diagon Alley on it. So that's what we're picturing.
And I think the secret, I'm not an engineer or an architect, but I think they probably put their walls on top of the existing walls instead of the gaps.
Yes.
That's what I would have done.
Yeah, that checks out. Yeah.
I should also say that most of the buildings and stuff were only on one side. So the other side of the close was just a wall, basically, from other buildings. So the entrances to houses were only on one side, is what I mean.
Are the houses all underground now?
Yes.
Or are they simply the basement of other houses?
Basically, houses is generous to begin with. They were not, they were large rooms that were sort of built next to each other. And some of them were used as storage. Some of them were like shops, like houses, as in people lived in them.
The names, the labels on this map, first of all, it's incredible. It looks like a video game.
It does, doesn't it?
I feel like I want to find like a campfire to
We
say
can
that.
go and we can walk around and pretend we're in a video game. I don't know if they'll like it.
Don't go in 8.
Number 8 just says plague.
Don't go in
One
plague.
of the labels is just plague.
Well,
Just
traditionally
plague.
in Scotland, you would build a room for the plague so that the plague. No, not really. There's a cowshed. You can see there's a cowshed there, so that gives
For
you
underground
an
cows.
idea of.
Ain't living underground with
Yeah, they're
cows.
blind. They're like those moles with
Wow,
very
that's
small
gonna
eyes.
Smell worse than the vaults.
You can you can imagine it's going to be pretty cozy is a generous word to live down there.
Yeah, and there's a generator room. Presumably, you have to get there on a timer at some point. So in Mary King's Close, we have a network of houses which have since been buried, but in the 17th century were simply just your usual grotty Scottish houses. Is that fair to say?
That's fair. I mean,
well, were they quite nice? I think they may have been quite nice.
They weren't. I mean, they were not. They were never great. The thing is, in Edinburgh, and that's I'm being nice, but in Edinburgh, in that time in the old town, even the middle classes were sort of living down there because there just wasn't space to separate people by class or anything. Like, unless you were the king, you know, a proper lord, and you were living in the castle. So there would have been not rich people or posh people, but middle class people would have been down there, and that's awful for us to think about.
Can you imagine having to live near the cows or the generator?
But they do have
or plague.
They still have one of the rooms still has wallpaper in it, so that shows that, you know, people made an effort.
Wow.
Not everyone, but people did.
One of them had computers, because at number 12 is Windows.
I'm trying to figure out where that window would have looked.
That's even more depressing, to the idea that it's just an actual window and they have to sort of take turns.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, let's make go on the window. You've been looking at the window for hours.
It's just propped up against a wall. It's a freestanding frame.
So it was never Edinburgh's premier address.
Okay.
If that helps. And Mary King, the reason it's called Mary King's Close is because Mary King was one of the residents at one point. A lot of closes on the mile are named after people who lived there or the families, because that would help you basically know who lived where without, you know, if you couldn't read or write or read a map.
So she literally was close.
She was close.
When you were near Mary
When you were near Mary King's Close, she was.
I looked up the real Mary King's Close website and just to see who she was, and it seems that she was quite successful. That's why I was wondering if they were posh, because they mentioned that she died in 1644. Of course, it wasn't called Mary King's Close until later, but in her will, she willed away 2 gold rings, 6 silver spoons, a long settle, which is like a bench, 3 buffet stools, which I didn't know what that was, but apparently but the word buffet is French for stool. So that's confusing.
They're crazy over there.
I've been doing buffets very wrong. 2 pairs of tongs, a variety of fire irons, 2 tinned chamber pots, and wine and beer, hopefully separate from the chamber
And
pots.
a partridge in a pear tree.
Yeah, lucky lady.
Wow, no.
Or lucky whoever inherited all that stuff from
Yeah,
her.
no, I think what we think of today as like rich or wealthy in terms of you know, she would have been middle class, but there's only so much, again, in that amount of space, there's only so much you can be separate from everyone else. So yeah, she would have been pretty well off, but not you wouldn't be like, oh, I'm jealous. I'd love to live in the Close of Mary. Oh, lovely. You know, you'd be like, nah, I'll live in a city that's not basically a people lasagna. There's very little room for.
I would prefer a Viennetta.
Yeah, well,
yeah, that'd be a lot nicer, wouldn't it?
Fancy.
While essentially following the same principle.
Yes. I mean, I guess it depends whether you're having mains or dessert, but yeah, absolutely. Shall I tell you about my experience with Mary King's Close?
Have you been haunted?
I've not been. Well, define haunted, because when I was, and I think I talked about this in the Major Weir one as well, because it's part of my childhood. We did a project on Edinburgh. Yes, in primary school. And I think that's quite normal to do a project on your hometown in primary school. But my hometown is just nightmares. So so I don't know how appropriate it was. But if
you don't finish your homework, you can't look out the window.
I think I said this last time. I think my illustrative cover of the project had a hanged person and someone burned at the stake, because that was what.
Wow.
But they brought us on a school trip into town and to Mary King's Close. But this was before. So now Mary King's Close, anyone can visit it. It's open to the public. There's a cafe. There's a gift shop. Very nice. When I was like 8 or 9, the only way you could access it was you'd have to write to the council and ask for permission to, bring a school group there, and they'd give you a key, and then a student from the uni would volunteer to show you around, and you'd give them a tip or something, but basically for free. And so we entered American. Now you enter from the mile at the top, but we entered through this door on Coburn Street, which, you know, just in the middle of the day, this tiny little door that goes into this, into the rock face, basically. And then we're in this underground street, you know, 8 or 9 years old. There's no light, there's no lights, there's no dummies, there's no information boards. It's just these dank, empty, abandoned rooms and a 20-year-old telling us the most horrific stories about child murder, the plague, body parts being cut up. He told us all the ghost stories, including the one I think we're going to talk about. And I couldn't sleep for full on weeks afterwards. I was like, if I close my eyes, I'm going to be back in Mary King's Close. So it's a very traumatic early memory for me. And I swore for years I would never go back there. And I have, and it's fine.
I was going to say, what if you're still in there?
God.
Wow.
It's not funny. But it was just, I don't know if I was I was an overly sensitive child, but I still think at the same time, like,
it does sound that way. Yeah.
It was a
sounds like quite hard work, really, as a kid.
It was just such a dark thing for young children to experience, and also just like, you know, it's very hard to, even now as an adult, it's hard to explain what it is to people. So as a child, you go in there and you're like, what do people live in here? What's happening? Like,
just a straightforward slopey horror.
Basically, really. Yeah. So that's my experience.
Just more hula hoop and lasagna.
I think James is hungry.
In 1685, George Sinclair, professor of maths and general clever things at Glasgow University, published Satan's Invisible World Discovered, which I'm sure we must have talked about on the Major Weir episode, because it is the source of the account of Major Weir and his sisters. But it is also, in George Sinclair's words, a choice collection of modern relations proving evidently against the Sadducees and atheists of this present age. See, atheists have been annoying people for a long time. So
passive-aggressive.
This is 1685. It proves to those people that there are devils, spirits, witches, and apparitions from authentic records, attestations of famous witnesses, and undoubted verity.
I feel like he should have added, like,
however she may be,
C at the end.
So, checkmate atheists. I did a whole book. And the first version of the book that was published didn't have this story in it, but a later version does. It seems to be a letter written to him by someone else, because it's addressed to him, but it is a first-hand relation of a second or third-hand story of a very spooky occurrence in Mary King's Close. It's the story of Thomas Coulthart. The weirdest thing about the story is it begins by saying that there was a certain TC. You know the way these stories anonymize who they're talking about by just using initials. So it starts out by saying there was a TC, an agent about the session house. But then a few paragraphs later, it says, and Tom was absolutely terrified. And then a couple of paragraphs later, it calls him Thomas. And then later on, right at the end, it's like, and so Thomas Coulthart. And it's like, why did you anonymize it at the start if you're just going to say his name?
I think somebody didn't pay an editor.
This sort of thing would never happen in Eleanor's book. Have you spotted any typos in the print edition?
No, not so far, because I had to read the audiobook, and I didn't have to. I wanted to.
You got through the whole audiobook without spotting any
mistakes? No,
there
were mistakes, but luckily we could
You caught them in time. With my books, we do it the other way around. We print them, and then I read it aloud the next week, and I go, Jesus Christ, this is all full of mistakes.
I mean, I'm sure there'll be more. It always slips through, but yeah, I feel. Satan's Invisible World is, you know, it's early days. He's already got a job as a professor. He's busy.
And it changes tense a lot. There's a lot of mistakes in this.
I believe that.
But it begins with our man Thomas Coulthart, which I want to say Coulthard, the modern Scottish surname, but it's Coulthart.
I'll allow it.
I guess it's the same name. It begins with Thomas Coulthart moving into a house in Mary King's Close.
Pre-beroofing,
yes.
When I was younger, I was picturing that everything was happening after it had been buried over.
Right.
So it's a bit less...
But it wouldn't.
No, it's a bit less spooky knowing that he might have had a window to the actual outside world.
Well, it depends if he was allowed to use the window.
Depends if he held it up.
Whether he was allowed.
Above him.
So he was moving there with his wife and one servant. His servant seems to have been carrying chairs back and forth all day when she ran into someone in the street who said, "Are you moving to Mary King's Close?" And she said, "Yes, of course I am." And he warned her, "Oh, if you live there, I assure you, you will have more company than yourselves." Ooh. no. And understandably, the serving girl refused to take the position, and she left, and she abandoned Thomas Coulthard and his wife to the house on their
Which,
own.
I mean, just no one wants to work anymore, you know what I mean? People
Yeah,
just sit.
so lazy.
This generation, honestly.
We've read many a story where exactly this happens, and people go to a house and then they see something a little bit spooky. I have to say, Mary King's Close lays it on very thick. The ghosts just keep coming.
They really
story.
do, yeah.
First night, the mistress of the house, Mrs. Coulthard, is reading her Bible.
As she is wont to do.
Yeah, just sitting at a table reading the Bible, going, ooh, really? Mm. And she looked up towards the fireplace and she saw the floating head of an old man, grey-headed with a grey beard, looking straight upon her. And she went to get a husband. She swoons a fair amount in the story. And he reassures her that it was probably nothing to worry about, and they eventually go to bed. After a little time, the good man cast his eyes towards the chimney and spied that same old man's head in the former place. How he knew it was the same old man, I don't know, because he didn't see it previously.
I mean, I don't want to be too prejudiced,
Uh-oh.
but if someone tells you there's a floating head,
yeah,
and then you see another floating head. You're gonna think, you're gonna jump to
so
floating heads look the
floating
same
heads
to you. Is that that's it?
Is it
all
James?
grey-haired man floating heads look the same.
Wow,
to me.
Wow.
Wow.
You're gonna cut this out, I assume.
Yes. Wow. An hour later, a floating child appears in front of that same fireplace right next to the old man's head. After an hour and more was spent begging God for mercy and all that sort of Christian business, they clearly perceived a young child with a coat upon it hanging next to the old man's head. At which sight the goodman, Tom, that's where he says his name is Tom, first slip up. No, forget I said that. Flew out of his bed. I assume they mean figuratively, not literally. And his wife after him. And this is very difficult this is like reading passages from 50 Shades of Grey. It's hard to work out how the bodies fit together in this bit. He, taking her in his arms, kneeled down before the bed, and with fervent devotion they entreated the Lord to be freed from that temptation, which is an odd choice of words for the ghost of a child.
It was there the whole time.
Depends what you're into, I suppose, but
both Ghost Old Man Head and Ghost Child were there for an
both
hour
there at the same time for
whole
ages. Okay,
just staring.
Now that would be enough for a ghost story.
Yeah,
we could call it a day. Probably run out of the house, refusing ever to return. But Tom C, whatever his surname may be, is made of sterner stuff. They stay there until a naked arm appears. And it appears in the present tense for some reason. A naked arm appears in the air from the elbow downward, and the hand stretched out, as when one man is about to salute another. This is actually the friendliest. I mean, we already have a friendly ghost, Casper, but this arm gives Casper a run for his money in terms of friendliness. It's constantly trying to wave at him and shake hands with him, and he hates it.
Hello.
So he skipped out of his bed and, kneeling down, begged help from heaven. The arm had now come within its own length to him, as it were, to shake hands with him. He hops back into the bed, going, don't touch me, I assume. They're hugging, absolutely terrified. Eyeing the naked arm, they're praying, and eventually
they're resisting
calls up
temptation again.
He is struggling to. I mean, I was about to say the things a disembodied naked arm could do. Who, apart from Dan Aykroyd, wants to think of that? He calls up to heaven in his desperation, and he says, "In the name of the living God and of our Saviour Jesus Christ, tell me why thou troublest my family. To my knowledge, I never wronged any man by killing or cheating, but hath lived honestly in the world. If thou hast received any wrong, if I can right thee, I will do my utmost for thee. But trouble me no more." What do you think happened there, James?
The other arm?
The arm was just not bothered. It just had no impact on it whatsoever.
Did it flip
just kept
the
coming It went like, ooh, like holding a...
Did it go and
little
float
handbag.
under the chin of the of the headless man and go, ooh, wiggle its fingers.
It did like an itchy chin gesture on his beard. It did absolutely nothing. It just, because it didn't have ears, it wasn't a floating ear, it was a floating arm.
Good point,
It doesn't seem to have heard him. It continues to try to shake his hand. That's probably the end of it. No, you fool! Next, a small dog comes into the room. Then a cat just came in. Again, as far as we know, a ghost of a cat. And finally, the hall was full of small little creatures dancing prettily.
Oh, well, that's nice.
Unto which none of them could give a name, having never in nature seen the like. That was pretty much the end of the visual apparitions. Finally, on the bed, I'm assuming covered in the blankets, sort of, 10-year-old reading a book style, praying to heaven. They heard a deep, dreadful, loud groan as of a strong man dying, at which all the apparitions and visions at once vanished, which is the word it used. This is for vanished. Lovely.
Ooh.
It's a brand of cleaner here. Yeah.
And that was the first night in the house. Pretty intense.
I mean, I'd be out of there, but there is a housing crisis in Edinburgh, so I get why they might be like, you know what?
That is exactly what Tom thought. It says, she was very scared. She declared that she wasn't going to live there, but it says that Tom, through bravery rather than through not wanting to buy a different house, decided to stay.
Money. I mean, I don't want to.
I've just moved into this house, and then the person who moved all the chairs quit. So I
don't want to draw on stereotypes, but I do think that if a Scottish man is told that he has to spend money on moving house, he won't do it.
Well, the head didn't float around, at least.
If it was my dad, he'd be like,
somebody else.
If it was my dad, he'd be like, he'd treat it like a spider. He'd be like, it's not hurting you. So, I'm not going to get rid of it because I don't need to. It's not doing anything. It's like, it's floating now. I can't sleep with the floating head.
The arm is just very friendly and polite. I really don't know how you can complain about that. That's basically a roommate. The perfect roommate.
Yeah, quiet.
And it will help with the dishes. Might slam a door now and again, but famously, Thomas Coulthard stayed in that house until he died. And I was quite impressed with that until I found out how soon and the answer is quite. A few weeks after these events, he went to Corstorphine, which is not far from Edinburgh.
Well, it's near where I grew up.
Is it? So is it now part of Edinburgh?
It's a suburb.
Would you regard it as Edinburgh? Because it was a couple of miles away from Edinburgh in those days.
It's definitely Edinburgh. It's got a big Tesco.
Yeah, it mentions that here. 1685.
On the way to the airport.
On Sabbath day, past the big Tesco, he went with his wife to Corstorphine. Did I pronounce it correctly?
Corstorphine,
It is spelled Corstorphine.
Yes. No, Corstorphine, you nailed it. He's nailed it.
He was struck down with a shivering and trembling in all his joints, and he was, and this can't be good, followed home by a flock of crows.
Oh, well.
Not a great sign.
Unless you're a crow.
He didn't think so either. In which case, absolutely great time hanging out with the boys. I don't know why we don't do this more often, I said to the other crows. This is great. These crows, my dear, he said to his wife, do prognosticate that I must die shortly.
Oh.
Quite creatively, you'll appreciate this, James, as a fan of people telling stories in frankly the wrong order. Mm-hmm. Then the narrative leaps to a different town, 7 miles from Edinburgh, called Tranent.
Tranent, yeah, it's
Tranent.
It's on the other side of Edinburgh. If you want a visual, now it's not part of Edinburgh. It's a bit further out.
Yeah, that hasn't made it. You didn't make it, Tranent. You are still somewhere else. We are now in the house of one of his friends, one of his advisors, someone who helps him with legal matters. This sentence is very confusing, so follow with me as I say it and let me know what you think is going on. This gentleman being in bed one morning with his wife, his nurse, and a child lying in a truckle bed near them, the nurse was affrighted with something like a cloud moving up and down the room. Now, I think he was in bed with his wife and the nurse was in bed with the child.
Yes.
Or he was in bed with his wife and the nurse, and the child was lying in a truckle bed near them. What do they get up to in Tranent, is what I'm asking. What's the vibe?
It's a crazy place, let me tell you. It is just chock-a-block, nurse, thruples.
This might be one of Scotland's first.
Poor child has to witness it.
Tranent is Gaelic for thruple, actually.
A thruple and a truckle, yeah.
Tra means 3 and nent means
There we
pull.
go. It's just innate to you. You just know these things deep in your soul.
So, and this is another classic olden days ghost, because these days ghosts are always pale and glowing, like in the movies, like post double exposure photography. But prior to photography, ghosts are always dark clouds and dark because they aren't real. Sorry, listeners. But still, sorry, I shouldn't have said that.
Whoa.
Sorry.
I think, to be honest, a dark cloud ghost. I think we should have done a movie warning.
Could this be? Is Eleanor aware of movies? Have we?
I don't know if you are
No, I
aware
don't
of
think so.
movies.
Have we warned Eleanor about movies? James, give a quick movie warning, even though it's too late now.
Movie warning.
This is a mere movie sticking plaster.
So, just as a brief sort of movie recap,
We don't have a jingle for that.
a friend of mine, when he was a kid, used to regularly wake up in the middle of the night, go to the top of his stairs. Coming up his stairs were what he described as the muies, which were shadow people, which would come up. They were like solid shadows, and they would come up, and then he would scream and then wake up in the bathroom.
Absolutely
later.
not.
Or wake up, and he told my friend who lived next door to him about that, and then that night the friend had a nightmare about muies.
So the danger of discussing the movies is.
Am I going to get muied?
Bring about a movie.
You may well be muied. You may well be bemuied.
Yes, it might be too late for you and the listener now.
What was that to do with the?
Oh well, this description sounds a lot like a movie. I don't think
I see.
it is an actual
Dark
movie.
cloud.
Rendering that movie warning more of a movie.
Well, they mentioned earlier as well. There was some little people dancing around the room. A hall was full of small little creatures dancing prettily. Also, I'm looking at the text now, and it says it's something like a cloud, but not shaped as such. So not a cloud.
Not shaped like a cloud.
Not a cloud.
Could
then.
be movie.
I think it was shaped like a man, and in fact a specific man, because our friend the gentleman draws his sword as if to fight the cloud that was not shaped like a cloud, and he says, "What art thou? Art thou my dear friend Thomas Coulthard?" and then you can see the guy going like, I shouldn't have said that. He has to be like, which was the guy's name, by the way. So obviously, it doesn't say this expressly, but I think the cloud was taking the shape and form of poor Thomas Coulthard. And it is believed that this encounter that morning happened at the very moment where, 7 miles away in Edinburgh, Thomas Coulthard left this mortal
in
plane.
Mary King's Close.
Yeah. Full of ravens.
Covered in ravens.
Full of covered in ravens, not full of ravens. That
would be ridiculous.
That would definitely kill you, though.
Yes, and so this gentleman comes to visit Coulthard's wife and tells her the story of how the ghost of the deceased husband appeared about Tranent the very hour when he was expiring at Edinburgh.
Ooh, which is very common in these stories, isn't it?
People are always appearing at the moment.
Yeah, but it's like, who do you choose to appear to?
Probably your accountant.
Anyone who can do the admin you've left behind.
I definitely wouldn't appear to my wife or ungrateful servant. I would appeal probably to my swinger accountant.
You'd be like, what's happening in Tranent?
Yeah, you might want to have a little goosey of what's going on in that truck.
Yeah, exactly. Just see who's where, bedwise.
Ghost perving.
And that is but one of the legends, but the main one of Mary King's Close, James.
So this is the story I was told, or in one of the stories we were told in Mary King's Close in primary school, and I remember which room it was even in from the diagram we have.
I'm looking at the map now.
It's number 13. That was the one nearest the door, and that was the one with the wallpaper in it. We had a little contextual sort of twist to the story, which may or may not be true, because I'm not really sure. There's a lot of plague legends about. There was a big myth for a long time that the people of Mary King's Close were, they all got plagues. They were bricked up alive and left to starve to death, which wasn't true. They were quarantined.
How could you? They've got a window.
Exactly.
They would have just gone out the window.
Idiots. But people did die of plague in the Close in the 1640s when there was this bad outbreak. But what happened was people would then have to come along and get rid of the bodies. The people tasked with, this is what we were told by this guy in the Close, the people tasked with getting rid of the bodies. The bodies, they're all in a pile, they're all stiff, they're annoying. So they think, to save time, we'll chop them up. We'll chop them up and we'll chuck them in the cart. And that's how we get rid of them. And that is how...
I think our job as plague body gatherers is not disgusting enough. Is there a way we could make this quicker and much more horrible?
Corpses. So that was supposed to be the origin of the fact that why there was so many severed body parts floating around and
that would
meeting
explain
the
the ghost of
Coulthards.
the arm.
Yes. and their heads.
Yes, it would.
And
Yes.
now picture being told that as an 8-year-old in the location where it happened. Oh, and you've got several undiagnosed anxiety disorders, I should say. What a day out.
A thruple of anxiety disorders. So, James, do you feel ready and capable of scoring?
I
this
do,
tale
actually.
of
I do.
Edinburgh horror.
Absolutely.
So, let's just get started with names.
Yes. Okay, brilliant. Mary King.
Mary King. Good Scottish
Mary King's
name.
close. What was he called? Hugh...
Oh, Hugh McDermott.
Huge McDermott.
Hugh McDermott.
One of the biggest McDermotts available. Not even his real name.
What was his real name?
A
Anthony
non-bloom.
Richard.
Christopher Murray Grieve.
And there were some good names that you said that I won't say.
So, well, yes. I mean,
Apart
the
from
name
Tennant.
Thomas Coulthard was so good that the guy telling the story couldn't not include it. He
Yes,
accidentally
and-
slipped it in
George Sinclair.
several times. And I think I know it's appeared before, but Satan's Invisible World Discovered is bearing in mind, it's 1685. There are only about 3 books at this point. To come in this early in book writing with such a banger of a title,
Oh, yeah.
admittedly, I guess a lot of the good titles have been taken at this point, but still, Satan's Invisible World Discovered. What a name.
The Discovered makes it. It's
Yeah.
like...
I hope it has an exclamation mark.
It has a semicolon.
Oh.
Will you take a semicolon, James? Will you accept a semicolon?
Well,
In
yeah,
lieu?
if it appeared to me by the fireplace when I was trying to pray, then yeah. I mean, the rooms of Mary Thingy's Close,
Close, yeah.
Mary King's Close are great.
Yeah. Chesney's house. Windows.
Plague.
One which is just 17th century, the whole of the 17th century there in room 5.
One room. Did that generate rooms? Or is it?
You don't want to end up in some kind of Borges scenario with an infinitely replicating Mary King's Close. No.
No.
So it is a strong 4.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. Tipped into 5 if any of them were rude.
What about Coburn
Oh,
Street,
Coburn
James?
Street, there you go.
Then it's
I
a
mean, the
5.
listener is going to have to pronounce it wrong in their head
Yeah.
because we can't say that.
Mm.
What about the OCR version of Coburn Street, where it ends bum? Imagine that, James.
When you say OCR'd, what does that mean?
It's when computers read text. So when
Oh.
computers read a text image and turn it into text, that
Right.
process used to be in the old days called OCR.
I think it's called AI now.
It's just magic AI, yeah.
Probably called AI.
Anyway, it says cockbum, so that's the point.
That's bleeped.
You've
And
made
it
me
will
say
sound
it.
worse.
Lord and Lady Cockbum, James.
Lord and Lady.
Both of them. So does that bump it up to a 5? The slight,
Yeah,
the
it's a
slight rudeness
5.
of
Yeah, I
Coburn
forgot
Street.
about the Coburns.
Okay. In that case, second category, if it's all right with you, Eleanor, I think we should go with supernatural.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Because come on.
Come on.
Oh, I mean,
Come
come
on.
on. Thick with ghosts.
So many. Any one of these would be enough for a haunting, and they had them all in the same night.
An hour's worth of old man floating head.
and you had a bit of comedy there with the arm. That was fun.
but friendly arm ghost.
Mm.
For any arm ghost.
And the dog ghost / dog.
Yeah, I mean, that may... Okay, I accept that the dog and cat might have just been a dog and cat, but at least the dog could see the floating arm, confirming that it was real.
Yeah.
If the dog
Yeah,
isn't a
that's a good
ghost,
point.
then that's another witness.
Right.
So-
Good shit.
Maybe the
yes.
dog was a ghost and the cat was not a ghost.
That's possible.
Or vice versa.
Mm-hmm. The little whatever the little creatures were doing the dance.
I feel like
number.
he really brushed over that.
That is very exciting.
Yeah.
Just full of dancing creatures that have never been seen before in nature.
And he won't describe them further. He's like, but you won't be interested.
Yeah.
Do you think that was an echo from the future? Was that
Oh.
a silent disco?
Do you think it was me and my primary school
It could have
compatriots?
been all your
Yes.
horrible little kids.
There's a pale little ginger
Yeah.
girl crying in the corner.
Are you this? Yeah. Are you? Was your class an unnameable horror?
Well, all children are, so yeah.
It might have been a time slip.
Whoa, this is it's got everything.
And then the cloud that didn't look like a cloud,
The non-cloud
which
cloud.
is that's very much one of the key USPs of clouds is that they can and do look like anything.
And
That's
they're
true,
cloudy.
yeah.
Then and then it turned into mooey warning mooey.
Hmm.
I think I did it then. Great, 5 out of 5.
Oh, nice.
Absolutely.
For the next category, we couldn't really settle on the pun.
Mm.
So we could go with the crow.
Go with
Because
the
he
crow.
went with the crow because he died. He could have it could be he came to arm,
Nice.
like harm.
Heads up.
Heads up.
Oh, heads up! It's ghost time.
Heads up, it's ghost time.
Yeah, that well-known catchphrase that people use.
Yep.
Heads
In
up!
the spooky community.
It's ghost
Heads
time.
up! It's ghost time.
Head and shoulders above the rest. No.
Oh, the chimney breast.
Oh,
that-
okay.
yeah, that works.
Wow.
Head and shoulders above the chimney breast.
So this category is called.
all the puns.
It's a lot of puns.
This is bad for the person that does actually keep a spreadsheet of the scores.
I insist upon saying it in full in order to inconvenience them and force some kind of word wrap situation on that spreadsheet, which will really make the flow look ugly.
I bet they'll love it. I bet they're into it.
So the title for this category is Go With the Crow / Come to Arm / Head and Shoulders Above the Rest /
the chimney breast.
Head and Shoulders Above the Chimney Breast. So include my mistake in the title / what's the
Heads
other one?
up.
Heads up. It's a ghost.
It's ghost time.
It's ghost time.
It's ghost
So
time.
that's the title.
Oh, imagine if I just gave it a 1 after all that.
So what's the score? What's the score there, James? for that?
5. One for each
Yeah.
terrible pun.
Yay! Okay.
Actually, no, I'm going to knock you down to 4 because I did really like heads up. It's ghost time. That makes me want to invent a time machine to go back and rename this podcast.
Heads up.
Go back in time and to when Dan Aykroyd was writing Ghostbusters and say, forget all of that. And just slam a post-it note down that says, heads up, it's ghost time. That's what your script's called. Final category. And I hope I have you on side here, Eleanor. James, I would like you to grade out of 5 Scottish women. Let's finally put this question to rest. Is Hugh McDermott right? Are there no good Scottish women?
Well, it was 1.
Yes, he was a 1 out of 5 for.
He
It
gave
was
it
a
a
1 out
1.
of all Scottish women, which is a larger number than 5
It is.
from Hugh. So, out of 5, how good would you say Scottish women are, James? Go.
Well, there was 1 from Hugh. There was 2 from Eleanor.
That's 3.
I mean, you do
That's
the maths.
3, yes.
Yeah, thanks. And there was
Mary King.
We've got Mary King herself,
Mary
a
King.
businesswoman
which is
doing it for
4.
herself.
And despite
Heads up, business time. That might have been her saying.
and actually, there's 1 more involved in this. It's Eleanor
Eleanor
herself.
Morton.
I was in the story.
Because
Yeah. Yes,
And
you
you
were
were
in the story. And you
and
may
you
have
are
been one of the
Scottish.
ghosts.
Yeah, I am.
And Eleanor is technically Scottish. I know the listener is shaking their heads
Not
at this point. But
even
it's
technically.
true.
Very legitimately. Do I count?
that would have to be
No,
believed.
if you
Yeah,
skip
true.
back, I don't know whether this will end up in the final edited version, but if you skip back, you said that people didn't live out with the walls. So that proves you're Scottish because no English person would ever say that
yeah.
or understand what out with means.
Well,
I didn't.
you-
I guess from
you
context.
guess from context because it makes perfect sense because it's a proper word.
The English version is without, but nobody says without to mean outside anymore.
It's in
Nobody ever
one.
says
It's
without
in
the
that
house.
one church song,
We just
Is it?
isn't it?
say out
That one Easter
out
song.
of spite.
Oh, nice word you've got there. It'd be a shame if someone swapped the syllables around. How would you like that?
Maybe you swapped them round. You ever think about
Could have happened. Could have happened. A Scottish invention? Nah. That doesn't sound plausible.
So they lived out with a lasagna.
Yeah.
No, they lived in the
Basically.
lasagna.
They lived in a
If you live out with
lasagna.
some-
This is
Thing.
how we should have started the story. We really missed a chance to set the scene. They lived in a hula hoop lasagna.
Once upon a time, like all Scottish people. You know, we got macaroni pies. We also have hula hoop lasagnas.
Well, thank you so much, Eleanor, for returning.
No, thank
as a
you.
deputy guest law person. Good luck for the Fringe
Thank
and for the
you.
book. Do you want to do a last minute plug
Yes.
for your many endeavours?
Let me do all my details once again. Life Lessons from Historical Women is out on the 15th of August.
It's an autobiography.
It's it is about cool women from history, and it's hopefully funny as well. So if you're a history nerd, I think you will enjoy it. And then I am doing a show at Monkey Barrel in Edinburgh, part of the Fringe, 12:05 p.m. every day except Mondays and Tuesdays, and it's called Haunted House, and it's all about spooky ghosts, specifically in Edinburgh. And unfortunately, I was not savvy enough to marry the two ideas together to be able to publicise both at once.
It's a completely separate
So
idea.
next year I'm writing a
Really
book
butting heads.
about whatever the show is about. Because
Is the show going to be available online in any form?
that's a good question. I hope so, but I'm afraid it's TBC. But the book will be an audio book as well. If you want to hear me rabbiting on, recorded in a Royal Mile studio. So if you want more old town Edinburgh ambience, that's where I was talking. Yeah.
Sound of screams in the background. And
just very loud bagpipes.
Nice
chunks
club.
of plague victims being stacked up.
American tourists saying, so is this where Dumbledore is buried, or is this... No, yes, so that, I think that's all of my pluggables plugged.
Nice one. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for deputy guest law personing in once again.
No worries, thanks for having me.
Oh, whoa, that was chilling. And not just because it was underground in Edinburgh, which would, I imagine, be chilly.
Usually, but during the Fringe, incredibly hot.
Oh, yeah.
And if you want some red hot jokes from Eleanor, you can check out her show. And if you want some red hot jokes and historical facts, read her book.
Yeah, and if you want some red hot extras, join us on the patreon.com/LoremenPod, where you'll get the bonus feed, you'll get an ad-free feed, and access to the Lawfolk Discord, where you can chat with like-minded lawfolk.
Red hot, pleasant chat.
Thank you very much to Red Hot Joe Burrows for editing this episode.
That's for Joe.
Thank you for the people who are already supporting us on the Patreon. You are also Red Hot.
Also very, very warm, yes.
Thank you to anyone who gives us a 5-star review. That's Red Hot. And why don't you come and see us at the Bill Murray Pub in Angel on the 18th of August, 2024.
2024.
And it'll be some red hot live action. That sounds different to what it will actually be.
Yes, you've really oversold that.
If it's too long, I'll just cut out the words red hot.